foundation of my cooking then, now, and in the future is always been the ingredients. You know, I'm very passionate about produce, sourcing new produce and using the best. Something about growing it, nurturing it, and then cooking with it or feeling it or cutting it up. It just, I don't know, it feels right. It feels like passion. When I'm cooking at home, I just want to be by myself and just create. I don't want to be a Gordon Ramsay or a Thomas Keller or a Heston Blumenthal. I want to be all three of them. I want to be Matt Moran. As an early age, I just felt as though this is what I want to do. You know, it just felt natural to come up with dishes and put food on a plate. In my early life, I was very blessed. You know, we lived on a farm. Unfortunately, when I was 8 or 9, we lost the farms and we basically moved out west. And it was rough. It was really, really hardcore and tough. 15-year-old, you know, big kids from Blacktown didn't become chefs. I really just wanted to leave school. I just wanted a job. And then the defining moment was when I first started my apprenticeship. And the first day I went into a serious kitchen and I saw food that I'd never seen before. The lights just went on and I thought, oh my God, you know, this is what I want to do. It wasn't just a job anymore. It was, I knew from that moment, it was a love affair. That was a great feeling. At Le Berlin, my first restaurant that I worked at, you know, we did a minimum of 90 hours, 6 days a week. There was no rest for the, you know, faint-hearted. You had to be committed. It was really hard, believe it or not, to discipline me back in those days. You know, I was a pretty wild child. I was a shocker. And knowing in a kitchen that, you know, if I didn't do what I was told, I was out on my ear. So I actually really enjoyed that discipline part. You know, I thrived on the discipline. The first 5 years was basically learning how to cook. And then the next sort of 3 years was learning how to use ingredients and simplicity in food and letting the ingredients talk rather than the actual cooking technique. Pinnacle moments in my time being a chef. I think the pinnacle moment was leaving La Belle and going to Manfredi and seeing something completely different. And that kind of, you know, revitalised me in many ways. You know, meeting my business partner, Peter Sullivan, you know, back in those La Belle days and then talking about, you know, doing something else. And then after that, I went out on my own. Paddington was my first restaurant. I was only 22 and all of a sudden I felt free and I could do whatever I wanted when it came to food. I basically started teaching myself, whether it was through travel, eating out, reading books. All those combinations sort of, you know, made me the chef that I am today. Every restaurant that I've owned or built kind of made you strive more and more and made you feel ambitious again. Walking into Aria every day to me is, you know, it's a highlight. You get this massive adrenaline rush and, you know, it feels great. It's my baby and it always will be. I was only 30 when we started Aria, you know, a magnificent restaurant on Sydney Harbour looking over the Opera House. And it was a massive gamble, a massive risk. You know, that restaurant cost a lot of money and it was, you know, a big restaurant. You know, it had 50 staff, I think, when we started. Now it has about 80 staff. It put us in the big league. The brand Aria was so strong, you know, we decided that we wanted to put it somewhere else. We wanted to replicate what Aria Sydney was and what it stood for. And Brisbane just stood out. It's developed into its own style, its own food. You know, the climate in Brisbane is very different, so the food is different. It's got its own identity. You know, I keep thinking every year I might slow down a little bit, but it just seems to get busier and busier. Aria Catering's probably the fastest growing business that I've got. We'll do anything, you know, we can do boardrooms, weddings, we can do corporate events. You know, it's just a thriving business. Chiswick, when it came about, it was more casual, simple food. You know, it's a food that I cook when I'm at home. We grow vegetables there, we grow herbs there. If we're growing eggplants, we're using eggplants. Growing cherry tomatoes, we're using cherry tomatoes. So it makes the restaurant very seasonal. You know, it's all about sharing. It's a way I love to eat. My father ended up moving back to the land. Him and I and his younger brother own a property together, Green Hills, which supply the restaurants with fat lamb and a bit of beef cattle. He's an inspiration. He's on the farm and he's producing great stuff, and that's what he loves. A lot of people over the years have said, you know, if you weren't a chef, what would you be? There's nothing else I could be. There's nothing else I want to be. There's nothing else that excites me. Cooking and running restaurants is my life.